morning. It's Viewpoint, the program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We have two this morning, personality and perspective.
Yes, we have.
A non-politician, except the young man did front for an excellent candidate for Judge Paul Lawrence. Our guest kind of took care of things for him in Logan County in a good fashion. First thing we start with kudos.
Yes.
And I nod to you because you're going to take that department.
I have two.
Oh.
One, you had told me that you had seen Bob Neal on Mark McDonald's program, Illinois Stories on PBS, giving a home tour of Mrs. Scully's home, which ultimately became Bob Neal's home. And he fully admitted publicly that he called it Money Pit number 1. Anyway,
appropriately I think.
It was repeated last night, and it was very good. And Paul Beaver was on there too as a historian because he wrote his
good program. His
thesis on the Scully family, which is a very interesting book, by the by. If you don't have it, I'll lend it to you.
I have it, thank you.
Okay, good. And secondly, and this kind of segues right into our guest this morning, because he was introduced especially at the Martin Luther King / Joyce Kinsey breakfast Monday morning. And it was a very nice affair at Lincoln College, and I thought they had a very good turnout, good program, good breakfast. Everything was wonderful, and it was fun for me because although I certainly didn't know Martin Luther King Jr. personally, I did know Joyce Kinsey very personally.
Yeah, very much
and,
so.
And she was my good friend back in our good mother days that we take all these excursions with our 6 respective kids. My gosh, we used to have some adventures, so it's always fun to have another occasion to remember Joyce.
I thought, Judith, that the young man who gave the I Have a Dream speech did an outstanding job.
Yes.
Great. I thought it was a nice morning. Why don't we just get down to business and introduce our guest this morning, because we have some things we want to talk about as a matter of his profession.
Yes.
And in general, kind of learning a little bit something about the practice of law.
Which is going to be a little something, because it takes Blinn Bates lots of years to learn about the practice of law. He is, of course, Woods and Bates, attorneys at law here in Lincoln, and succeeds his dad and his grandpa. And how long have you been in the practice of law now, Blinn?
It will be 5 years in May.
Is that right? See, that's why I'm getting old.
Why do they let these kids run around on the street?
Oh, dear heaven. It's amazing. And your practice of law doesn't include criminal law.
I do not. I do not do any.
There's great, good, plenty other subject matter for an attorney.
Sure is.
You know,
Judith,
it gives me great pleasure, particularly to have Blinn with us this morning as a guest. When you growed him up, when you watch him grow up and run around in the swaddling clothes, so to speak, and to see a young professional, particularly the son of a godson of mine, so it's kind of personal. And we're glad to have you aboard, Blinn.
Well, thanks for having me.
We're tickled to death that you're back here in Lincoln practicing with your father, and of course his grandfather before him. And then we had a great-grandfather in the family who was also a judge in practice of law. Isn't that correct, Judge Blinn?
That would have been E.D. Blinn, I believe, that was an attorney in Lincoln. And then my great-grandfather was not an attorney, but my grandfather and my father obviously were.
Yeah. Well, your great-grandfather was a surveyor by profession, and I think by training. I remember that very well. I can only remember yesterday, but I can go back that far. So, in your practice of laws, or in your short term, really, by golly, 5 years, it's hard to believe. Has there been anything unusual that was an eye-opener for you, Glenn, that they didn't cover in Ethics 101 or something like that?
Well, other than being heckled by yours truly when I come into the office in the morning and about how late it is at 8 a.m., yeah. One of the funny stories that I can recall, I guess, one of the first few months out of law school when when I was just learning some things and learning the ropes, Dad and I used to get together before we'd go to court and talk about what was going to happen, what we were going to do, etc. It was going to be a very hot day, and I didn't have socks on. And my father advised that I should head home and get some on, or else I was going to be late. And he went into the other room, and I thought he was joking. And he came back, and he was very much serious. And
I suppose you gleaned that from his comments. Yeah.
And I wasn't real happy at the time, but it was a lesson in doing things the right way and doing things the wrong way.
Exactly. You said it right there.
I worked for a little while for Judge Daner, Judge Jerry Daner, and he had some rules in his courtroom that people who were there had to be dressed appropriately. You couldn't come in what you call a muscle shirt or short shorts or with a hat on, that you had to kind of think ahead a little bit and dress in such a way that it showed respect for the court. And I admired that. I think that this Casual Friday that started however many eons ago has really gotten out of line. And now you're dressed to the nines.
And I think he's dressed professionally.
Yes, he is. And I think that that's appropriate. You know, you kind of behave and present yourself the way you're dressed.
Exactly.
I think that in my personal experience, I guess I've found that you also garner a lot more respect, even if maybe you don't even deserve it. If you're dressed well, people see that you're dressed well. And
it's just common sense. Unfortunately, that's going out the window.
It isn't as common as you think it is. Well,
it's
sense maybe, but common, that's dicey.
Well, what was your besides putting on some socks, and what Blinn, for me kidding him about getting on the office late, he gets down to 8 o'clock. Well, I used to have coffee with his grandfather and later on his father, and if they weren't in the office by 6:30 or so, there's something untoward. So I'd see Blinn coming to work after I was driving back from the workout, and I'd look at my watch and I say, "It's high noon, brother." It's getting to work at 8 o'clock. Ain't gonna cut it. What in your appearance at the courthouse on behalf of clients and so forth, I'm sure. Now I've seen you in on the second floor courthouse. You have to appear there for your client, and apparently is that kind of a well, I don't know how to phrase this. I want to say night court, but that's not what that is. But it's kind of a perfunctory thing for people who haven't paid their bills and so forth. And is that a kind of a scheduled thing up there, Blinn?
For us specifically, most of our court cases, I guess, are on Thursday mornings. And that's when we handle ordinance violation cases on behalf of municipalities and collection cases for some of the clients we represent who are owed money, etc. And we have a 2-hour window on Thursday mornings. That's what we do in that window on the second floor there.
Yeah.
So it's scheduled to get those done.
You mentioned municipal violations. I know you're also city attorney.
Right.
Is that a whole different kind of law?
It's not necessarily a different kind of law, I guess. It's a different kind of punishment from what you would get in a criminal matter. It's a fine-only punishment, and you know, you're not going to go to jail or anything for violating an ordinance, at least in the city of Lincoln. Some places you might be able to, but it's a different punishment, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And that would be things in the city, overgrown weeds, junk in the yard, underage consumption of alcohol, things like that.
Perfunctory stuff, nitty-gritty stuff, it still needs to be attended to.
It needs
now,
to be.
As a city attorney, it's incumbent upon you to be in attendance at all of their meetings. Then are you to sit there just as an advisor if a technical or legal question comes up during the course of conversation? But that's not the only thing you do insofar as your duties as city attorney.
No, we are there as an advisor at the meetings. Questions come up from time to time. For instance, at the City of Lincoln, usually the questions will arise at the workshop meetings, which are on the Tuesdays. That's where they discuss business and things like that. At the voting meetings, they will typically have things in order and vote and do things like that. And they have to do those votes in public meetings, public forums, prepare ordinances, prepare documents, review contracts, prosecute the ordinance violations. And, you know, I represent more than the City of Lincoln. I also represent the City of Atlanta, Village of New Holland, Village of Hartsburg, and a few others. Do some work for them as well.
Heck, you got a circuit just like Abraham Lincoln, haven't you?
Yeah, he rides a circuit.
If they propose an ordinance, as I recall, it could be more strict than any state law, but never less. So do you have to research anything that they propose then to be sure that it's socially acceptable?
Most of the proposals will come from the council, and I guess I would say that my job is to make sure that it fits into the code appropriately and that it's worded appropriately and in a way that is going to be enforceable. But the big ideas and things like that come from the council of the municipality. But I think you're correct that it could be more restrictive than the state, but not less.
Well, the writing of legal matters is somewhat complex.
I would think.
As a matter, they say that they have to have lawyers to be able to understand what the fellow lawyers have written, and that seems to be the way it is. I also say that a lawyer is paid partly for what he knows, but mostly for what we don't know, and that would be appropriate. Let's go to the Woods Foundation, Blinn.
Okay.
You're vitally involved in that, and it has been a huge matter of importance in our community with their philanthropies. Take us back through the formation of the Woods Foundation, if you would, sir.
Bob Woods was a law partner with my grandfather and subsequently with my father. And he and his wife formed the Woods Foundation, and they funded the Woods Foundation, and they were very philanthropic people in their own right. They were very quiet about their philanthropy, and they did it, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And the Woods Foundation kind of was created, and there were some directors that came and went, and I'm one of those directors now, and we have the privilege of giving grants and giving money away and helping worthy causes in and around Logan County. And it's been really rewarding to be able to be a part of that.
Let's talk about that in terms of the things that you've done for education in the city and county.
We have certain requirements, and obviously certain things we have to do. And one of the ideas we had was to solicit grant applications from educational buildings within Logan County, and we solicited those grants from them for the purchase and use of technology and for the furtherance of technology in schools and things like that. And this past year, every school building in Logan County applied for and was given a grant for technology, and we've seen the results of that and where technology is going, and I think it's been a huge benefit to the schools and to the community.
Let's talk about the specific of District 27 in the city of Lincoln, the K through 8 grades, because of course you're most familiar with that since you're on that board.
Right.
But talk about how they dispense their monies and what it's done for the schools.
One of the things specifically that I know that District 27 has done, just through getting updates at board meetings, etc., they've put what's called Promethean boards or whiteboards in every school room in the district, which is quite a few in District 27. And I don't know how familiar you are with these boards, but these boards are very interactive. They put basically put computer screens up on these boards, and they can move around with pointers and things on the board, and there's clickers that the students have that they can answer questions, and the teacher immediately knows who's getting it, who's not getting it, can get immediate feedback from the students and know, I need to explain this better, or I've got this, we can move on, things like that. It's pretty incredible.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from the teachers?
I think the teachers like it. I think the district has introduced it in a way that it's a tool for them to use when they think it's necessary. They haven't thrown it at them and said, here you go. They've trained them on it, and I think that it's been beneficial for them to be able to know how to use this technology and how to teach the children how to use it and how to get that kind of feedback.
I'd like to comment, Mrs. Busby, that young Mr. Bates here is a third generation to serve District 27 as a board member. That's pretty neat.
Yes, it is.
And maybe Collins will be there someday too.
If Colin wants to do that, he's more than welcome, but he's got a little ways to go.
You'll be here to know it. I won't be here to know it, but you will.
He's got a ways to go before he's even in District 27.
That's right. That's right.
Do you get many requests that are, quote, just really off the wall for the Woods Foundation that you have to be circumspect in turning down, but you want to laugh at them? They're so bad.
No, not really. I think if somebody spends the time on submitting a grant application, it's not going to be a real off-the-wall type situation, because they're not going to waste their time for that. I don't
they've
think.
got to do, if for instance, another organization wanted to apply to the Woods Foundation, you have some set standards and some guidelines that you have, and some paperwork that has to be filled in before you ever submit it.
Right. We have a grant application form that we use, and we ask them to submit, and with a request for funding and what it's going to be used for, etc., so that we can consider the grant and make sure that they're an organization that we can give a grant to, because there's only certain organizations that we can give a grant to.
Can you give us a Reader's Digest version of what the requirements are to make application?
I suppose the Reader's Digest version would be that you'd have to be a 501c3 organization, and there's certain subcategories of that we can and can't donate to, but I guess that would be the Reader's Digest version.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to ask about, because you were attending the Martin Luther King breakfast Monday and were recognized there, that means you had backed that scholarship fund that they have going. Now, is that a common fund that you give to the business of scholarships? Because that sure fits in with the education that we were just talking about in the other schools.
We do some educational grant giving in order to further the education of students and things like that, and the Woods Foundation did give a grant to the scholarship fund that the Martin Luther King breakfast hopes to eventually put into place. And the directors of the Woods Foundation saw that as a pretty worthy cause to send a Logan County student to school with a scholarship. So.
Right.
Now, you have had some major gifts to our community. Would you care to come off the top of two or three major things that the Woods Foundation has done?
The Woods Foundation helped with a grant to the new hospital in town. It was one of the Woods'
very generously
favorite charities. They were very involved with the hospital.
Yes.
And I think they would have been proud of the involvement in that grant. We've given a few grants to some organizations to buy some transportation. The Oasis recently bought a new van that they transport their seniors around in. And Mr. Dalpaz was pretty excited about that grant. He's a great guy, and it was fun to see the excitement. And the Woods Foundation has done a lot, and the Woods, Bob and Joe, are just very, very generous. We're very generous people, and their legacy continues to assist Logan County.
Now, he was from here, and she was not originally. Is that right?
Wilmington girl.
I believe that's correct. I was pretty young when my dad worked with Bob. I remember when they worked together, and I remember seeing him in the office when I would go down there, but my recollection of him is pretty slim.
Yeah, right. Well,
it's called a generational gap.
Yeah, long may it live.
Well, the foundation, you just really can't hardly say enough about the impact that it's had on the community in many ways. And of course, then that goes down through to individuals, because they are associated with the various organizations that have had, excuse me, please, the philanthropy has just really been very, very important to our community.
I think so. I think the education of the children of our community is pretty important. You know, we can't expect to have our community grow and thrive if we don't have educated individuals that live here.
Well, in the growing part, for one thing, you know, people who are looking for a community in central Illinois to live in, if they come here and see that our education is way below par, they're certainly not going to choose Lincoln.
Right.
Think about yourself. You want the best for your boy.
Sure.
So does everybody else.
Don't worry about Collins. He's going to be all right. We're going to take a quick minute to honor our sponsors this morning. We'll be right back. Our guest this morning is Blinn Bates. We're delighted to have him.